Have you ever really thought about how a god would leave the world? I mean, not through some accident, but a planned cosmic exit? Well, today, we are diving into one of the most profound and mysterious events in all of epic literature, the departure of Krishna. Let's try and unravel this together.
Right? It's a huge question. It totally challenges our whole idea of what an ending even is. We're not talking about a defeat here or some kind of tragedy from the divine perspective. This was a deliberate cosmic event that Krishna orchestrated himself. So the question is, how did he pull off his own final act on the world stage?
So, the story kicks off not in some quiet, lonely place, but with this massive cosmic assembly. You have to understand this was not a private affair. The texts tell us that pretty much the entire universe, from the highest heavens all the way down, gathered to see what was about to happen.
And just look at this guest list. We're talking Lord Brahma, the creator himself, Lord Shiva, all the way down to celestial singers, great sages, even mighty serpents. Literally everyone who was anyone in the cosmos was there. And that tells you something really important. This moment wasn't just for a select few. It was a universal event. It was a spectacle that was about to change the very fabric of creation.
Now, what's so fascinating is the mood of this gathering. This was no funeral. These beings, they all showed up singing, celebrating his life, glorifying all his divine activities. They filled the sky with their celestial ships, showering down flowers like it was a festival. So it was a celebration, a cosmic send-off for a divine life, not a moment of mourning.
Okay, so let's get to the main event itself. With the whole universe watching on, the Lord prepares for his final, mystical performance on this earthly stage.
And this was an act of perfect control, the ultimate display of yogic power. First, he acknowledged all the gods who'd come to see him. Then, he merged his consciousness completely back into his own self. He closed his eyes, and through this incredible internal fire of pure concentration, he just consumed his physical form. He left the mortal plane and entered his eternal home.
And the fallout from this was instant and huge. The moment he left, the very pillars of that age, we're talking truth, religion, strength, fame, prosperity, they all left right along with him. This wasn't just losing a person, it was the turning of a great cosmic clock, signaling the end of an era for humanity and the start of a much darker age.
And the sheer mystery of it all is captured so perfectly in this verse. I mean, even the powerful gods, the ones who came specifically to witness this, were just left completely stunned. They couldn't track his path. They couldn't figure out how he entered the spiritual realm. Just like a flash of lightning that's there 1 second and gone the next, he was simply gone.
Okay, so let's hit pause for a second. Before we go any further, the text itself stops here to give us this really crucial piece of philosophy. It wants to make absolutely sure that we don't misunderstand what just happened. This was not a tragedy, and it certainly wasn't a defeat.
And the key idea here is a term called Maya Vidambanam. It basically means that the Lord's entire life on earth, his birth, all his incredible deeds, and even this final departure is like a divine play. He's like a master actor. He creates the stage, he comes on, he plays his part perfectly, and when it's over, he withdraws everything and just remains in his own glory.
And this just drives the point home perfectly, doesn't it? I mean, this is the same Lord who brought his teacher's dead son back from the realm of death. He literally conquered death itself. The text is basically asking, how could a being like that ever be powerless? The answer is, he wasn't. He chose not to keep his earthly body because he wanted to teach one last powerful lesson about detachment.
So that's the big cosmic picture, right? A flawless divine performance. But down on the ground, for the people who loved him, this wasn't philosophy. It was the end of their entire world. So now we're going to shift our focus to the city of Dvarka, where the aftermath was just an unbearable human tragedy.
The fallout was just swift and absolutely devastating. Krishna's charioteer, Daruka, gets back to the city and just collapses, sobbing, bathing the feet of the elders with his tears. And as he tells them what happened, that the entire Vrishni dynasty was gone, the people were so overwhelmed with grief and shock that they literally fainted. And in a final heartbreaking act, Krishna's wives, his brother's wives, and his son's wives, they all embraced the bodies of their husbands and entered the funeral fire.
This wave of grief was really the breaking point. It marked the definitive end of the era, a conclusion that was about to be sealed by a lone hero and the ocean itself.
Even the great warrior Arjuna, completely crushed by losing his dearest friend, had to find some way to go on. And where did he turn? He found his comfort in the timeless wisdom that Krishna himself had given him on the battlefield, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. It was the one final gift that outlasted everything else.
And then came the final, physical end of the age. The moment the city was empty, the ocean just rose up and flooded all of Dvarka. In an instant, it was all gone. But here's the amazing thing. The only place the waters didn't touch was the Lord's own divine residence. It stayed there, this permanent, sacred reminder of his eternal presence, even after he was gone.
So, after all of that, the cosmic spectacle, the heartbreaking tragedy, where does this story leave us? What's the point of even telling it? Well, the text doesn't end with despair. It actually ends with a profound promise.
And here it is, the ultimate takeaway. Just recounting the story, hearing it, chanting it, simply remembering it, is a transformative act. The text itself promises that anyone who does this faithfully becomes purified, freed from negativity. So the real purpose of the story is the powerful effect that it has on you, the listener.
And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. Why would a story that's filled with so much loss, the departure of God, the death of an entire dynasty, the drowning of a city, why would it end with a promise of ultimate spiritual gain for anyone who just remembers it? That paradox? Well, that might just be the deepest teaching of all.
We often focus on the spectacular starts, right? The births, the big moments that launch historical figures. But today, we're doing something different. We're diving deep into an ending, and an unprecedented one, really. We've got this incredibly dense, profound collection of scriptural accounts describing a transition unlike any other. It's the final departure of the Supreme Lord Kent from the earthly realm, and the immediate, honestly staggering aftermath that followed. This isn't just an event, it feels more like a cosmic turning point, like a curtain falling on a whole age. Our main source here, it's a really highly revered text, Canto 11, chapter 31. It details everything right after the destruction of the Visayas and the Lord withdrawing his manifested form. So this deep dive, this is for you, the learner. We want you to get a really thorough grasp of this pivotal moment, and not just the story, the drama of it all, which is intense enough, but also the deep philosophical ideas the scriptures bring out. Our mission basically is to track this event through three main phases. First, the incredible celestial reception during the departure itself. Then, the really crucial philosophical take on why the Lord performed these quote-unquote mortal acts. And finally, we have to look at the catastrophic end, the grief, the end of the Uddhava line, and the fate of the amazing city of Dvaraka.
Yeah, and what's so striking right from the start is how the account just elevates this beyond, simple history. It's treated as a cosmic realignment. It shows how the entire structure, the macrocosm, reacts when the fundamental source withdraws. So you're seeing this huge synthesis. On one hand, the mobilization of gods and celestial beings, and on the other, the immediate, devastating microcosmic impact on everyone left behind. The text, it sets the stage immediately. It tells us every level of existence, literally from the highest gods down to mystical earthbound creatures, they all gathered. They were there waiting, expecting to witness something that in the end they couldn't actually see. They saw the lead up, they saw the place, but the actual moment of transcendence, hidden, even from them.
Okay, let's unpack that audience a bit. The sheer scale of who showed up at the departure site, this wasn't some quiet, private moment. The scripture describes, like you said, this massive, almost inter-universal gathering. It's right there in the first few verses. So who exactly was on the guest list for this final act?
Well, it was essentially the top brass of the universe. You start at the absolute highest level. Brahma, the creator.
Yeah.
And Lord Shiva, who's called Baba here. And he's there with his consort, goddess Pavani or Parvati. Just their presence alone tells you the scale of this event. It's like the executive heads of the universe had to be there.
And it just cascades down from there, doesn't it? You mentioned the administrators, the ones managing the day-to-day of the material world.
Exactly. The source lists them, the demigods headed by Indra, specifically Mahendra Pramukho, the vault. Then you have the great sages, the Munaya, and the lords of all the planetary systems, the Prajeshvaras. Think of it like every governor, every philosophical authority figure, they were all summoned.
But then you get this other layer, which I find fascinating, the mystical beings, the esoteric ones. It really drives home that the entire cosmos was like holding its breath. We hear about the Pittis, the ancestors, the Siddhas, those perfected yogis, the Gandharvas, celestial musicians.
The Vidyaras, knowers of magic. Mighty serpents, the Maho Urag, celestial singers, the Karanas, and even, the powerful, sometimes intimidating figures like the Yakas and Rakshasas, alongside the beautiful Kinnaras and Apsaras. It's a complete cross-section.
Wow. So including everyone from the super virtuous Sitas down to maybe the more, let's say, aggressive Rakshasas. What's the significance there?
That's key. It shows the Lord's withdrawal wasn't just a local event. It affected every single conscious being, regardless of their moral alignment or where they existed in the universe. And the text uses this one word for the whole crowd, karamotsuko. It means they were extremely eager, intensely curious, you could say, to witness this transcendental departure, the niryanam.
And they weren't just standing there silently, right? You mentioned celebration.
Exactly. It wasn't solemn. It was active glorification. They were singing about the Lord's divine birth and his activities, kuramachijanamaka. And the visual the source gives, it's spectacular. They're showering down streams of flowers, pupavarti, from their celestial airplanes, their vimana avalibi. It says the sky was completely filled. Zokula. Imagine that the air thick with flowers, light, sound, devotion. It was this grand, public, universal farewell party, really, honoring everything he did during his time manifested.
That sets an incredible stage for the departure itself. With that kind of audience, you'd expect this blazing, visible ascent, maybe, a chariot of fire. But the scripture tells us something else entirely. The Lord, the Vibhur, the all-powerful one, he didn't leave like that. It was a deliberate, internal yogic act. So what exactly was that mechanism?
And this is where the narrative really shifts, from just recounting events to deep philosophy. Verses 5 and 6 describe it. It's a mechanism of internal transcendence. The all-powerful Lord, he first takes this final internal stock of the universe. He sees Lord Brahma, acknowledges his presence, and then he acknowledges his own manifested opulences, his vibhutir atmano. It's like an internal signal. Okay, the play is over. Then comes the yogic part. This is the crucial lesson on detachment. He merges his consciousness back into his own spiritual self, Sivajatmani Katmana. He closes his lotus eyes. And the departure isn't through some external vehicle, it's internal. He uses the fire of yogic concentration. The text has a very specific term, yogathaya nyayat. And with that internal fire, he consumes, or maybe better said, he spiritually dissolves his own manifested transcendental body.
So he effectively used the body's own meditative energy to burn up the manifestation. And the text makes a point of saying this body was perfect, right? Look, virama, enchanting to everyone, and the ideal focus for meditation, Dhyana Mangalam. It wasn't like he was failing, it was the ultimate form. He just chose to withdraw the energy sustaining it.
Exactly. And here's the twist, the real surprise for that huge assembly of divine beings. Despite that massive, devoted, highly advanced audience, Brahma, Rudra, all those perfected Siddhas, the text clearly states they were struck with astonishment. Ativismito. Why? Because they could not perceive his entry into his own transcendental abode.
Wait, really? That's incredible. These are the highest beings, masters of perception, dimensional travel, and they missed it. They couldn't see the actual transition.
Absolutely. His path is described as avijatagatya. Literally, his movement was unknown, or maybe beyond their comprehension. It was the ultimate vanishing act, because it wasn't a movement within their framework of dimensions or perception. The text gives this perfect analogy to help us grasp it. He compares Kancha's movement to lightning Sodamanya.
Ah, okay. Like how lightning flashes and it's gone.
Precisely. Just as lightning leaves a cloud and vanishes instantly from our sight, Kancha's movement was unperceived, even by the demigods, Daivathe. It was like an instantaneous snap back to his eternal reality, unobservable. It proves he's not bound by any laws of perception, not even divine ones that govern the manifested world. He just left.
Okay, let's talk about the immediate fallout. Because this wasn't just a quiet exit, spiritually speaking. It triggered huge systemic changes, didn't it? We heard about the cosmic drums, the flowers continuing, but then verse 7 lists something really profound. The departure of abstract principles. Why did these specific things leave with him? The text lists truth, satya, religion, dharma, the earth's own fortitude or patience, hivme, fame, and prosperity or fortune, shri or lakam.
This is absolutely critical, because it signals the exact nature of the shift in the cosmic era. The Lord wasn't just upholding these principles, he was their living embodiment. He was Dharma, he was Satya. So when that central stabilizing force withdrew, these concepts, well, they couldn't maintain their solid footing on earth anymore. Take the earth's fortitude, titibme. There's this idea, mythologically, of the earth personified, patiently bearing the weight of sin and suffering, but only sustained by the Lord's presence. the immediate departure of duty. It suggests the Earth itself lost its capacity to patiently endure the rising negativity. This isn't just poetry. It implies the physical and moral stability of the planet started to degrade right then.
Wow. So it's like the moment he left, the whole philosophical scaffolding of the age of virtue, of Dharma, it just collapsed. And that cleared the way for the next age, the age of quarrel, Kali Yuga.
That is exactly the connection the text is making. Their departure is the signal for Kali Yuga's dominance. Without Kam physically present, truth becomes slippery, relative. Religion faces uphill battels against materialism and doubt. The planet's stability, well, we see that. Noble fame gets easily twisted. Prosperity becomes unstable, maybe unfairly distributed. The very structure of that previous, more golden age, it didn't fade away slowly. It collapsed instantly the moment its foundation was removed.
And the demigods, after realizing they'd missed the actual moment, the avijjatagatya, what was their final reaction?
Right, so Brahma, Rudra, all the others, still filled with this sense of astonishment, they glorified this unique yogic departure, the Yogigati Hari. They essentially acknowledged they'd witnessed something beyond comprehension, the Supreme Lord demonstrating total independence, even for the perception of the universe's greatest beings. They offered their final praise and then returned to their own realms. The cosmic audience dispersed, leaving just the devastation unfolding on Earth.
Okay, this brings us squarely to the philosophical angle, which is so important for, anyone trying to understand this. Because the big sticking point, the apparent contradiction, is if he's supreme, why did this whole departure sequence start with him seemingly being struck by a hunter's arrow, as mentioned in earlier accounts? The scripture seems very aware of this question and goes to great lengths to address it.
It absolutely does. It preempts that confusion.
Yeah.
It makes sure we don't mistake this divine this play for an ordinary death. The text is explicit. The apparent birth, jhana, and disappearance, apaya, are flat out called displays of his illusory energy, maya vitamanam. It's like the scripture itself has a footnote shouting, hey, don't take this literally. This is a deliberate show, a philosophical demonstration.
And the actor analogy really helps make that clear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially for us today.
It's the perfect way to relate. His acts are just like the acts of an actor. Yatanayasha. The Supreme Lord, he creates the universe, he enters it, anuvisha. He plays his various roles and pastimes, vichya, and then he withdraws it all. But here's the crucial part. Just like an actor playing a king or a beggar or even someone dying on stage, the actor remains the actor underneath, unchanged. His roles engage with the created world, but he himself is eternally beyond the limitations of that world, including seeming mortality.
But the text doesn't just leave it at the analogy. It hammers the point home with specific, powerful examples from his life, almost challenging the listener, King Purit, directly.
Exactly. It gives undeniable proof of his power over life and death, showing that someone capable of these things couldn't possibly be powerless, aso anishet. First, it reminds us he brought his own guru's dead son back from the literal realm of death, yamalokanita. That's mastery over death itself. Second, it directly addresses the listener. He revived you, Parikut, after you were basically incinerated in the womb by the Brahmastra weapon. That's controlling cosmic, almost nuclear-level forces.
And the final proof is maybe the most definitive. He conquered even the master of death himself, Antakantakam Apisham. He subdued Yamaraja, the controller of destiny.
The logic is just airtight. If you can do all that, conquer death, reverse fatal destruction, overpower the Lord of Death, how could he possibly be truly vulnerable to a hunter's arrow? The only conclusion is, he couldn't be. He wasn't defeated or killed. He allowed the appearance of being struck.
So then the big question is why? Why orchestrate this elaborate, seemingly mortal exit? What was the ultimate lesson?
And that brings us to the core philosophical payoff in verse 13. The Lord, the absolute source of everything, possessing infinite power. He simply did not wish to keep his manifested body on earth any longer. The real lesson was aimed at us, at humanity. He chose this method specifically to display the path of detachment, svasthagatya pradarshan, for everyone. He was teaching by his own example that attachment to the physical body, even a divine one, is temporary. It's ultimately part of the material manifestation. By withdrawing this way, he showed that even the most glorious form must eventually be let go of. He was instructing everyone. Focus not on the temporary external, but on the eternal internal spirit. It was the ultimate masterclass in non-attachment.
Wow, and the moment that transcendent lesson is complete, the scene just snaps back jarringly from the sublime and invisible to the raw physical reality on the ground. We shift entirely back to Earth, to the city of Dwarka, and the first sign of disaster comes with Daruka, the charioteer. He gets back to the city alone without the Lord. His first action, He falls at the feet of the elders, Vasudeva and Ugrasena, and the text says he bathes their feet with his tears. That physical act, the weeping, it's the immediate trigger for this wave of grief.
And that grief just instantly becomes unbearable for the city. Daruka has to recount the whole story, the total destruction, the nidhanam of the Vasis. Hearing this, the collective shock just paralyzes people. The text says they were overwhelmed, udvinyahadai, like hearts pounding, extreme anxiety, and many just fainted from unbearable grief. Chokart from Murchita. This wasn't just sadness, it was a complete physical and psychological breakdown. The spiritual anchor of their entire world had just been ripped away, and the immediate result was mass shock, hysteria, people literally losing consciousness. The verse says they were overwhelmed specifically by separation from Cain.
And the survivors, those who could still function, they immediately rushed to the battlefield where their relatives lay dead. What would that seem like? The lamentation.
The description is incredibly raw, very visceral. It talks about people in their uncontrolled agony striking their own faces gananananam. They hadn't just lost family, they'd lost the very foundation of their reality. It led to this complete, uncontrolled outpouring of grief, including self-inflicted pain, which the text uses to show the sheer unprocessable scale of their sorrow.
And then, of course, the emotional core. The parents, Vasudeva, Devaki, Kanana's mother, and Balarama's mother, they couldn't handle the loss of both their sons.
No, it was simply too much for a mortal mind to bear. Tormented by this sorrow, they literally lost consciousness, Vijahus Muntam. Their awareness just shut down. They couldn't process the loss. Their bodies, their minds just gave out. Their grief over losing Kantan and Balarama was so absolute, it effectively ended their connection to earthly life right there.
And following that collapse of the parents, the scripture then details this incredible act of collective devotion from the wives. They were tormented by the separation, Bhagavad Virahatra.
Yes, this is a really profound display of spiritual commitment, often associated with the concept of sati, but here deeply tied to pure spiritual devotion. The text mentions Balarama's wives, Vasudeva's wives, the wives of the Lord's sons like Pradyumna. They all embraced the bodies of their slain husbands, Upagiya Patisis, and then they chose to give up their own lives, ascending the funeral pyres. But the text makes a special point about Kensa's own wives. Led by Rukmin Idya, they're described differently. They were fully devoted to him in heart and soul, Tatatmika. For them, this wasn't just about following a custom. It was the ultimate statement of their spiritual identity. Their very existence was so tied to the Lord that separation was inconceivable. So they entered the fire, not just as grieving widows, but as souls intrinsically connected to Him, returning to their source. It confirms their relationship was way beyond the physical.
Okay, so the entire civilization is basically in ruins. The cities become a place of mass grief and death. The main figures are gone or unconscious. This sets the stage for Arjuna, Kin's closest friend, the great Patava hero. He now has this immense, heartbreaking job of dealing with the aftermath. Arjuna himself is deeply afflicted by the separation. He's facing the total destruction of the Yadava race, people he loved. How did he find the strength to do what needed to be done?
This is such a crucial point, especially for you, the listener. He consoled himself, the text says, with the wise and truthful words, Saduktipa, and specifically the teachings spoken by Gita, Kitatai. And commentators universally understand Katakitai here to mean the Bhagavad Gita. This is huge. It confirms that the philosophy shared on the battlefield, that wisdom about duty, detachment, the eternal self, it wasn't just theory. It was the immediate practical source of strength and solace for Arjuna. When the Lord's physical form was gone, the only thing left to hold on to in that collapsing world was the eternal wisdom he'd already given. It shows the real life-saving power of that teaching right when everything falls apart.
And Arjuna immediately gets down to the most necessary, sacred, and practical task, performing the final rites, the Saparikama.
Yes, exactly. For all the relatives who died, especially those whose family lines were effectively wiped out, Natan Gotram, Arjuna stepped up. He acted as a surviving family member for everyone. He performed all the funeral ceremonies properly, Kathavat, and in the correct order, Anupurvasha. It was this act of bringing ritual order, honoring the departed, even amidst total chaos and personal grief, maintaining dharma even then. But the physical world, the earth itself, was still reacting to the Lord's departure. The text describes this incredibly dramatic, sudden event immediately after Lord Hari left Dwaraka. The ocean just surged in. It flooded and swallowed the entire city. In a moment, Canto. The great city, famous for its wealth, its impenetrable defenses, just gone, vanished under the waves.
There was one exception, right? And this detail brings it right back to the transcendent, doesn't it? The ocean didn't touch the Lord's own magnificent divine residence. The Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, that one spot remained. It refused to be swallowed.
Yes. And this is like the narrative's final stamp of eternal presence. The source makes a point of saying Lord Madhusudana eternally resides there. Iti Sanihitas Tatra. Think about it. The city, built by manifested power, dissolved the instant the Lord's physical presence withdrew. But his personal dwelling, the temple, which is considered non-different from him, it remains, eternally present. The text even says that just remembering that place, Maitya, removes all inauspiciousness. It is the supreme auspiciousness, sort of a magal. It acts like this permanent, purifying landmark left in the world.
So, with the past literally submerged, Arjuna had to secure the future, however small it now was. He gathered the few survivors. The text mentions the women, children, and the elderly Stribalavatan, basically whoever was left after the internal conflict and the flood. And he took them to Indraprastha, the old Patava capital, gave them a place to live. But crucially for the legacy, he installed Vajra, who was Kanada's great-grandson, as their new king Rajavikanam. This ensured the dynasty wasn't totally wiped out. It continued through this surviving heir.
And that act, settling the survivors, ensuring the continuation of the line through Vajra, that was the final piece of earthly duty for Arjuna and the Patavas. With kids gone and the Uddhava future secured as best as possible, the Patavas themselves realized their own purpose on earth had reached its conclusion. When they heard Arjuna's full report, the total destruction of their dear friends and relatives, the Suhudvadam, the elder Patavas, knew it was their time. Their work was done. They'd fought the war, established righteous rule, and now the divine anchor of their lives was gone.
And their final decision was one of complete letting go, wasn't it? Total renunciation.
Yes. After appointing you, King Padakite, the listener of this whole narration as the heir to their own dynasty, Vasharam, all the Patavas made their choice. They decided to depart on the great path, the Mahapatham, which is understood to mean that final journey, the path toward liberation, moksha, from which there's no return. Their earthly duties were finished, their lives perfectly synchronized with the departure of the Supreme Lord himself. The age had definitively ended.
So we've covered this incredible arc, the cosmic gathering, the unseen yogic departure, the immediate collapse of earthly virtue, the intense grief and devotion in Dvaraka, the final rites, the sinking city, settling the survivors, and the Patava's own departure. It's a story of total transformation, just packed with tragedy and transcendence, all happening so quickly.
And the text itself assures us that engaging with this story, learning about it, isn't just, an academic exercise. It explicitly lays out the spiritual benefit, the falashruti, that comes from studying these specific events. The Force promises that anyone who faithfully chants or glorifies the Lord's divine birth and activities, particularly these final pastimes, is completely freed from all sinful reactions sarva papi pramusyat. Just focusing your mind on these events, understanding the Lord's actions, that knowledge itself is purifying, it's liberating.
And it goes further. Someone who hears and chants these glorious, purifying accounts of Lord Hari's incarnations and pastimes, they attain something invaluable.
Yes, supreme devotion, Bhakti Bharam. And it's this supreme devotion, cultivated through hearing and chanting, that ultimately leads the person to the highest destination, the same state achieved by the greatest saints, the Paramahasagato. So the conclusion is really profound. By meditating on this story of ultimate detachment, the Lord withdrawing his form, you gain the ultimate attachment, pure, unwavering devotion. And that devotion is the key. The Lord's transcendence becomes the very means for the listener's own transcendence.
So this deep dive, it really wasn't just about history or theology. It was an exploration of how these huge concepts, detachment, divine power, eternal truth, how they're demonstrated even in moments that look like mortality or seem like total failure and collapse. Okay, so here's a final thought. Something provocative for you to really chew on, building directly from the source material we discussed. The ocean swallowed the Dvaraka instantly, wiped it out. Except for that one divine residence, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which remained eternally present untouched. Now, if a single physical place can hold that kind of eternal presence, that sarva magalam, that supreme auspiciousness, even when the whole manifested world around it dissolves, What might that imply about the potential for that same kind of eternal, unswallowable presence to exist within the heart of an individual, especially one who offers that same level of absolute tatatmika devotion we saw from the queens? That potential for inner eternal sanctuary. That's something for you to explore on your own.